Hi everyone, Charlene here. Today we are going to make a card using the October 2025 Layering Stencil Set of the month. This is called The Tree, and you can see it's this lovely 4-layer stencil set that gives us this really cool layered tree with some fun hanging disco balls. I'm going to start by picking out some colors of ink. I'm going to use a light to dark color palette of Green Hills, Fresh Lawn, and Pine inks. And then I'm also going to use Peony for the accent layer, which is going to be our light bulbs, as well as some of the details on the disco balls. So this is stencil layer number 2, and then you have stencils 1, 3, and 4. You want to go light to dark because they progressively cover less space on the pine boughs. So let's start out by grabbing a piece of cardstock. I'm going to use a sticky mat to hold my cardstock in place while I do my ink blending. So I'll start here by bringing in stencil layer number 1, and I'll line this up down in the bottom right hand corner. If you want to use the registration marks on the corners of the layering stencil to help line up your piece, you can do that just by using a larger piece of cardstock. Starting with my Green Hills, I'll get a good amount on the brush, and I'm going to bring it up and over all of the different areas of this stencil layer. Once I have an even layer of ink, I'm just going to work my brush back and forth all the way across the stencil. This helps to get the excess ink off the stencil, as well as helps make sure you get all of the tiny little nooks and crannies colored in. So I'll go ahead and remove stencil number 1, and you can see this gives us a nice base layer for the tree. I'm going to skip stencil layer number 2, which is going to be our pop of color layer, and instead I'm going to bring in stencil layer number 3. Now, because I'm not using the registration marks, sometimes it can be a little harder to line up the stencils. I'm going to line it up based on these areas here that are the little circles that have a dot in the center. These are going to line up around on the different white areas that are on our cardstock. Each time I'm taking care to press down those edges of my stencil so that I can make sure it stays in place. Now I'll bring in the next darkest green, which is the Fresh Lawn. I don't need to clean my brush off. I'm just going to use that same brush that I'm going to use for all of the greens and do the same exact thing here as layer number 1. I'll bring the Fresh Lawn all the way across this layer of the stencil, making sure I get a nice even layer of ink. Now, before I take my stencil off, I'm actually going to grab my pine ink here. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to add a touch of the pine ink over the top to make this more of a Christmassy green and less of a true green. So just a touch of pine, not too much on my brush, and then I'll bring it over the entire stencil layer. That's more like what I was looking for, so now I'll go ahead and remove stencil layer number 3. Look how beautiful. I'll bring in stencil layer number 4 and line this up and press down around the edges. For this layer, I'll continue with the pine ink, and I'll do an all over layer of that pine. Once I have a nice coating, I'll go ahead and remove this stencil as well, and that's going to complete all of the tree. Now I'm bringing back in stencil layer number 2 and lining it up. For this layer, I'm going to bring in my peony ink, and I'm getting a really good amount of ink on my brush. I want to put a lot of peony ink down. Once I'm finished, I'm bringing in white pearl hero paste. I'm going to put a small amount of paste and put it over the entire stencil. I want this to be pretty thin here because I want my paste to pick up the peony color. I don't want it to remain just white. That's also why I made sure to put a nice thick layer of ink down, is because that wet ink will get slightly absorbed by our paste and we'll be able to see the pink coming through our beautiful hero paste. It's still going to be nice and shiny though. We'll have that beautiful pearlescence once we're done. Once I get the thin layer down, I will just carefully peel up my stencil, going very slowly. And as this dries, the paste will pick up more of that pink. It'll dry pink and shiny. So I'll set that aside. You do want to make sure and clean off your tools and stencil pretty quickly, and don't put any of the leftovers back into your container because you don't want to contaminate it with the pink. I'll stamp a couple of accent bows and my sentiment that says "Have a Ball This Christmas." These are coming from the October 2025 card kit of the month. The stamp set is called Deck the Halls with Disco Balls. I'll stamp this with some intensified black ink, so I'll start by inking up my stamps, making sure they're nice and inked before I flip and press and lift. I'll stamp a second time to build up that black color, flip and press and lift again. And I'll take my sentiment off because I am just going to go ahead and flip my cardstock around here 180 degrees so that while I'm here I can go ahead and stamp my second bow. I'll ink up my stamp again and flip and press and then lift and do a second stamping. I always like to do a second stamping to build up that black ink. I've lined up this stamp right here inside of the black outline, so I'll lift that up. This makes it so you can easily color in the stamp, and I'll use that same peony ink, keeping the color theme very cohesive. So I'll ink up my stamp and then flip and press this over. I'll do a second stamping to build up the color, making sure I get a nice even amount of peony on the stamp. So flip, press, and we'll repeat for that second bow. I have the coordinating dies. I'm holding them down here with low tack tape, and then I'll cut everything out with my Platinum Scout here, which is really handy to keep right by my desk. I like having it here just to die cut a few quick little items and not have to go over to my bigger machine. Here is our finished piece. It's nice and dry. You can see that beautiful pearlescent shine that we have, and you can see that nice pink color that's come through on the paste. I'm going to trim about 3/8 of an inch off from the right hand side, so I'll line this up and cut that off. For our background, I'm using an A2 sized piece of blush cardstock, which will give us a nice pretty pink stripe. I'll start by adding glue to the back of our ink blended panel, and then I will adhere this right along the right hand side of our piece of blush cardstock. Here is the Treasured cardstock. It's an awesome assortment pack. You have glitter metallic, a matte metallic, there's also a mirror metallic, and a pearlized kind of cardstock. All silver, all very pretty. I'm going to use a very small piece of the glitter metallic cardstock. I have an A2 sized piece here, and I'm going to trim between 1/8 of an inch and 1/16 of an inch off of the right hand side. We just need a thin small strip. Then I'll bring a line of glue right along the edge of the white cardstock where it meets the blush cardstock, and then take that glitter strip that we created and carefully put it along the edge of the white cardstock. So making sure it's even on one side, lining it up, and then smoothing it down with my finger. It gives us this nice glittery transition line between the white and pink. For added dimension, I'm bringing in adhesive foam squares and adding them to the back of our sentiment as well as to the backs of the bows. I'll start with my sentiment, removing all of the release tape. I'm going to put this down so that it kind of nestles into that small white space right there and goes all the way across. There's a couple of different spots you could put the bow. You could put it at the top, you could put it over the topper piece, or you could put it underneath the topper, which is what I'm going to do. I've already taken off the release tape, so I will just pop this down with that disco ball peeking out from underneath. Do the same thing for the second bow as well. I'll add glue here to the back of our completed piece, and then this will layer over the top of an A2 sized card base. Here is our finished card with all of that fun shine from the white pearl hero paste, we've got our disco balls, and a little bit of glitter to finish things off with that glitter paper. I hope you picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that you will know about future videos here on the Hero Arts YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.